Okay, hi everyone. This is Smithy Q from SmithyQ.com, back with another video analysis. This here is the follow-up Longplay game. So last time I hung my queen in incredible fashion, despite being in a completely winning position. And so then I immediately played this game, which I probably shouldn't. I should have simply stopped because I played quite poorly, uh, to my standard, I believe. And it was not so much that I'm hanging pieces all around, though, well, you be the judge by the end. But all my mistakes are really from um, misevaluation. It's where I was trying to put my will into the board. I was trying to force an attack. I was trying to force aggressiveness. I was trying to essentially, get my pound of blood and avenge that last loss in spectacular fashion. That was what I was going for. I was forcing the position. I wasn't I wasn't reading the position properly, which is normally one of my strengths. And this led to a series of poor moves once we get into the middle game. So let's take a look. The opening, I was playing the Sicilian. I've been having some success with this in Blitz compared to my normal Scandinavian. And my opponent played knight c3. The only opening I really know, in all honesty, is the Sveshnikov. So this is this one, which is quite interesting because normally I'm a very positional player, and I really enjoy having stable positional advantages, such as the knight, a hole on d5 where I can place my knight. So normally I very much like playing white. However, I'm trying to become more dynamic. I'm trying to not just be a positional player, to be well-rounded. And so I'm playing openings that have this dynamic quality, where if black doesn't play dynamically, he's simply worse because he has, again, this really poor square. And so black needs to play active. That said, my opponent played knight c3, and I didn't really know what to do, so I just played a6. And then after d4, take, I was able to play e5, and we got something that's more or less Sveshnikov-ish. And then we have, he brings the knight back, we develop, we both make pawn moves. This is kind of funny, I think, is that he plays a3, which is completely unnecessary. And because he did that, I figured that gave me a time to play h6 myself. Why not? His bishop belongs on g5, and so if he can waste a tempi, I can waste a tempi. Which is kind of funny. I'm not sure if that's the soundest logic in the world, but it's not bad. We both develop, we both castle, we reach here. Once he played f3, which, I mean, it's a move, I felt really, really happy. More than happy. In fact, I felt like, okay, it's time to simply win this game. So I'm going to play bishop e6, then I'll probably play d5. I don't care if you can take it, if it sacrifices the pawn. If you can get d5 in the Sveshnikov, you're generally, your position, if I can talk, your position tends to become extremely active, and you're often better, even if you sacrifice the pawn. White has to hang on for dear life. And then this would also open up all sorts of things for a kingside attack. And so I played bishop e6, and I'm playing d5 next move. Then my opponent plays knight d5. And this completely stops my plan. I didn't even consider it. And this shows already how I'm not playing very well. I'm not thinking properly. And then my next move, errors in chess, they often come in bunches. Very rarely is there just one bad move and then a whole bunch of good moves right afterwards. Is that I was going to play d5, right? Even with my faulty thought process, he completely stops it. And so I take it with my bishop, which is, I don't know, that's it. Well, let's just take a look at this. I move my knight back, he plays c4, I get my knight developed, and then he plays rook c1. And so we just back up for a second. So from white playing d5 to here, d5 to here, one more time, d5 to here, what happens is, compared to those two positions, white now has more space on the queen side, white has the two bishops, and the only thing that's changed is black's knight's on a worse square. So this was an incredibly poor decision on my part, probably the worst way. In a perfect world, of course, I would have taken with the knight. However, the pawn's protected, and it's a fork, and whoops, I lose instantly. Maybe that would have been kinder than what happens in the game. But what I wanted to do is, again, I'm trying to attack. And so I wanted to, again, in a perfect world, I move the knight, and then the pawn starts marching up the board. And then it's almost like a King's Indian at this point, which I've been sort of studying. If I can get the pawn to f4, because then all my pieces are launching themselves towards the king, and I can get the pawns, whoops, not that. There we go. You can get the pawns going, and things are going to go pretty darn well, I think. If I could magically put this pawn there. But I can't. And again, if you see what happens here, is that white simply has a huge initiative on the queen side, and my attack hasn't even started yet. So what would have been a better move? Well, again, I do want to get this pawn moving, so I should move the knight. So instead of taking, I could have played knight d7. Notice that this does a couple things. Okay, yes, it does let my pawn move, so that's absolutely fantastic. But also, it's covering the b6 square, which he was threatening to occupy. And so black is A, hanging on to the queen side, so that's great. White doesn't have any free roads. I'm also preparing my counterplay. Excellent, what's not to like? If this were a longer time control game, and or a game in which I was thinking more clearly, I would have found this. But instead, I give up the two bishops, and I spent a lot of time moving my knight, and now white's got the queenside initiative. I play queen c8. He plays queen d2. And I had to think of an idea here. And if we look at it, my position, again, clearly it's not doing very well, but I was still pretty confident. That shows you how poorly I was, again, evaluating the position. But anyway, I made a good decision here. In this position, if you had to ask what is black's best piece, I don't even know what your answer is, but if you ask what his worst piece is, it's probably this bishop. This bishop staring at its own pawns. Again, it's by definition a bad bishop. And if this bishop could exchange for that bishop, if both these bishops just disappear, well, that's clearly beneficial for black. Because then white, okay, he has the two bishops, which are great. If you can trade one of them, only having a bishop versus the knight is much less powerful. Also, this bishop, all the pawns are on light squares, and so that is white's bad bishop. And so trading bishops would be an absolutely excellent idea. Also, I want to get that kingside attack going with f5 and then f4. So I need to move the knight. So that way the pawn can move. By combining these ideas, I play the rather peculiar-looking knight to h7. Which, again, if you just see it at first glance, you're thinking, Smithy, you're just randomly moving your knight next to your king. What's going on? But we can see now, this is opening the way for the bishop to come to g5. Because the queen moved on d2, the bishop can't move away. We back up, right? In this position, it isn't so powerful, because he could move his rook and then move his bishop, and then push me back maybe with h4 or something. When he puts his queen on d2, and then I come back here, right? When my bishop goes on g5, it's going to either pin the bishop either to the queen or the rook. And so it has to get exchanged. Also, after an exchange, my knight can come to g5, which is a pretty nice square. Now here my opponent makes a mistake. He plays f4. Why is this a mistake? Well, let's just back up for a second. Look at this position. Again, look at this position. Get it into your mind. See what it's like. Now let's go ahead about 3 moves or so, where I simply took, played bishop g5, rook e8. Let's do 2 more. Take, take. So we look at this position, and then we look at this position, right? Boom, boom, boom. By the way, this is a very good way of seeing time in chess. Or if you see a really big change, when you flip back and forth between positions like that, you generally know that there was a mistake in one of those moves. And we can see that here. Again, all of a sudden, black is doing great. His rook is on an open file. Yay, he doesn't have his bad bishop anymore. Awesome. This knight is doing really well. It wants to come to e4 where it hits the queen. Nice too. This knight can come to e5. Whoa, whoa, whoa. Which would then become perhaps the second best piece on the board. Queen b6 with check is possibly coming. Or maybe once the knight moves, we can come to h4. And this attack is coming. Huge change. So what happened? What was the nature of white's mistake? White's mistake, When he played f4 and then take, this gives me the e5 square. The thing with pawns is that if a pawn is on a square, then a piece can't be on that square. My knight would love to come to e5. Let's back up one move. Again, right now this knight can only sort of go to c5. That's it. If this pawn weren't there, it could go to e5. But the pawn is there. As long as the pawn's there, this knight is kind of trapped. Not trapped, it's restricted. By playing f4, that gives me the square. Excellent, also gives me this diagonal. Whoa, beautiful, right? Things are excellent. And then the second thing to realize, if you were to ask yourself, where is white strongest in this position? Or, which side of the board does white have the advantage? And the answer would be the queen side. Again, his bishop's staring here, his bishop's staring here, he's got the rook on the file, he can try and push c5. And he's got the space there, right? This wedge over here. It makes perfect sense for white to play on the queen side. In this type of pawn structure, where black has pawns here and then white's been able to push his pawn to d5, white's advantage is the queen side. When he played f4, he's trying to shift it over to the king side. Right? So he's trying to control everything. But it doesn't, chess very rarely works that way. Because if you're strong if you're strong in one way, your opponent is often strong in another way. And we can see how my pieces simply flow right in. And things are great. Now I gotta give full credit to my opponent, because right here, you can see I've got a pretty big advantage in time, which is very rare for me. And I have the better position. Not by a lot. I mean, it's not like I'm winning. It's not even as if I have a big advantage. But black's position is more comfortable. My opponent plays the next few moves very well, though. Bishop g4. He puts the bishop on the best diagonal, and it pins my knight to the rook. If he doesn't do that, my knight comes to e5, and I'm probably in a position where I start taking over the game. I am the higher rated player. In that type of position, I think chances are pretty good I don't blow this. Let's put it that way. I know to bring my knight to e4. Then he plays the move that probably wins them the game. Queen a5. Not even that this is probably the best move in the position. It's hard to say. The computer is ambivalent. But this gives me an option. Basically, what do I do? And again, I want to attack. I want to play something like Queen h4. I want to bring all my pieces over. Whoops. I lose a knight, so I can't do that. Okay. What do I do then? I don't want to exchange queens. If I exchange queens, then I can't attack. He's also attacking my my pawn. And my knight's still pinned. I don't know. So I'm thinking, how do I move my queen somewhere? There isn't really a good square to avoid the exchange. He'll just, say he brings the rook to the e-file, it's pinning my knight, things aren't so pleasant. The best move in this position is b6, which I did not see. And I might have seen this if I were playing a long-time control game, a couple hours, or correspondence chess, when I have days to think. Here, I couldn't see what would happen after I took the pawn. And in my defense, it's a pretty nice position. The computer says that this is completely winning for black. The attack is very, very strong here at this point. But I did not even consider this because he's simply going to take the knight. He's forking my rooks. It looks like I'm dead. But it's actually forced mate here after queen e3 check. If he moves the king around, well, we get the familiar smothered mate. That's always fun. If he ever tries to, let's say he moves take, either now or before, it doesn't work because after queen takes, knight takes, rook takes, it's a back rank mate. After, okay. Now it's a back rank mate, which is always nice. And so this position is, it would be winning. I didn't see it. In my defense, I mean, that's pretty hard. That's sacrificing a piece to get the knight in. It's thematic, but not easy. So I ended up playing the much more worse rook to c7 with the same sort of idea. Is that now I'm trying to stop the queen. Maybe I can get the rook over. The rook's not pinned anymore. Maybe things will be okay. But this is the start. We can see that I'm trying to force an aggressive kingside tactical position, even when the position doesn't necessarily demand it. He plays bishop f5, attacking my knight, bring the bishop to a good square. I finally I guess the knight isn't pinned, but I move it out. He moves here, and then I just move my rook over. And I'm not complete. And the reason for this, if we back up for a second, is I'm trying to get the attack going. I want to play, again, queen h4 or something like that so badly. But I can't do that because the rook is pinned. Right? If I suddenly move this, it was this. And so we can see how my thought process is so muddled. Is that I want to get my queen over here. I can't because it's pinned. All right? He's offering the exchange of queens. Okay, I'll stop that. All right? Then he makes it almost a nothing move. All right, I want to get my queen. Oh, I can't because the move I did to stop the one move is suddenly going to hang the rook. I'm not thinking, moves ahead. I'm thinking in individual positions. I'm not even making the best move then. And a lot of this is, again, thinking about what I want to do, is I want to attack. But unless I'm willing to play b6, sacrifice the pawn, and get going, then I have no business attacking. And I should just accept a pretty nice endgame here. It doesn't even matter if he takes his pawn. If he takes the pawn, I can come in here and here and win the b pawn right back. It's completely equal. You know what? I'm the higher rated player. I'm probably better at endgames. I probably win this. Or at least I can put some pressure there. And again, normal thinking me is pretty happy to enter some of these endgames. But instead, I'm trying to keep pieces on, and then I do this. And then I don't know how to resolve this, and I still want to attack, and then I end up playing this move. And so what happens is, okay, he exchanges queens. Then he gets c5 in. And what happens here is starting on this, well, basically, as soon as I exchange queens, is that I did not consider white's advantages at all. I wasn't thinking about my opponent. I was thinking about me this entire time. And I'm thinking, okay, I'm going to bring my rooks up. I'm going to double rooks. I'll put my knights on some good squares, maybe something like this, or wherever. I'm going to move my knights, and I'm just going to go in. I'm going to dominate. I'm going to win. I did not treat my opponent with any respect at all, as if he had any ideas in this position. And he does. Again, he has a pretty good advantage on the queen side. If things open up, he can get double on the c-file. He can invade. Again, his knight has some very good squares it can potentially come to. But I did not consider this at all. And my position becomes exceptionally worse with pretty much every passing move. I play rook e5, forcing him to exchange my best piece. And I think, aha, I'm doing great. And then he plays c6. And you know what? I thought, whatever. Take, take. Okay, that pawn's pretty advanced, but it's not going to matter. I can just bring my rook here. I'll move my king all the way over. Maybe bring this rook down. I'll win it. Maybe I'll play knight c5 to stop the rook's protection of it. And things are going to be great. Like, complete fantasy land. White's advantage is on the queen side. It's always been on the queen side. This pawn is extremely fast. It's 2 moves away from queening. Why aren't I taking that seriously? I play f5. Am I trying to attack in this position? What the heck am I doing? What f4, f3? Like, this is the type of move that I chide other players from doing, and here I do it myself. And why do I do that? Because my thinking is so confused. I'm not clear at all. He brings his knight to an excellent square. What do? All right, I just bring my king in. He plays b4. He's expanding even more on the queen side. Then I play g6. Because I just realized that there's a potential tactic here where he could have taken, take. My opponent could have done that. But the threat is actually stronger than the execution, and his queenside play is more important than that. And this is another example of how I'm thinking one move at a time. I play f5, he attacks it. Right? There's an immediate one-move tactic, which I don't even consider. You can see I spend 3 seconds to make this move. And only afterwards do I realize, oh crap, my pawn is hanging. And I'm so worried about my pawn, I don't even consider his pawn, which suddenly goes here. Then he jumps into c6, attacking my knight. My rook. I move my rook to d5, why not? He plays knight a7, and all of a sudden we see, whoops, that pawn, which I wasn't concerned about at all, is going to be forced through, and I have nothing better than just giving it up. Then the game is over, so I resigned. And so what happened is pretty much right here. Once we exchanged queens, I played the rest of the game without an opponent. Which isn't a good thing. As if white didn't exist. As if I'm the only thing that's there. As if I can simply put my will onto the board. Completely ignored him. And why did this happen? Well, I was not being objective at all. I was, again, thinking about attacking, thinking about moving, even without queens, even when I have no idea what I was doing. And so sometimes you have to look at the takeaways. I didn't have so much chess mistakes in this game. In the sense that, I hung a piece, or I exchanged into an inferior position, or what have you. Is that these are, you might want to call them psychological mistakes, or thinking mistakes. Is that I approached the position in the completely wrong way, in which the way I approached the position could only give me wrong answers. Doesn't matter how good I was, how much better I may or may not be better than my opponent, it's by thinking the wrong way, by not taking the position into consideration, I'm pretty much destined to lose. And this is one of the reasons why I try and talk about, the objectivity and the positional factors so much. Because if you truly understand the positional factors, you very rarely make these mistakes. And if I weren't, again, I don't want to make excuses for myself. If I weren't so tilted, I would have made better decisions. But of course, that's true for everybody at all times. And so you've got to be objective. And if you start seeing yourself, thinking, oh, I don't want to exchange queens because I want to attack, you have to ask yourself, is that a want? Right? Or is that a demand of the position? Does the position say you can attack? Or are you just doing it because you feel like you want to attack, because you like attacking, because you enjoy attacking? Right? Good chess is more than that. And this is a lesson that I had to learn the hard way. Relearn. So is there one more game? There is one more game in which I lost, I believe, which will be coming up probably on Friday. And that game is, I don't know if that's the worst of the 3 games. I'll let you guys decide. I'll make a straw poll. But there'll be one more game, which, again, where my thinking is so poor, I couldn't make a good move if my life depended on it. And sometimes, that part of the chess doesn't get enough attention. We think about moves, that's great, but we are the ones who are making the moves. And if we are not functioning properly, then we can't help but make decisions. So that's why, if you're playing Blitz or whatever, and you're playing a whole bunch of bad games, you have to stop playing. And that is perhaps some of the best advice, but sometimes you have to live through it. I'm going to stop yammering at this point. So again, on Friday, I'll have the last game coming up. Let me know your comments, your thoughts on this. And coming up soon is hopefully I'll have a much better, much more in-depth long play game, which we can discuss. Otherwise, again, I'm SmithyQ from SmithyQ.com. In a couple days, I'll have the full analysis of this on my blog, so you can check that out. Otherwise, that's it. So thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. Bye for now.